Welcome, dear listener, to a journey through the mists of time, a voyage across the vast expanse of ancient seas and into the very heart of human storytelling. As the evening deepens and the world outside softens into twilight, we invite you to settle in, to let your thoughts gently unfurl, and to prepare your mind for a tranquil exploration of one of the most enduring narratives in all of Western civilization, Homer's The Odyssey. This is not merely a tale of a hero's arduous return. It is a profound meditation on home, identity, perseverance, and the timeless human spirit. Our aim is to offer you a narrative tapestry woven with scholarly insight and vivid description, yet presented with a soothing rhythm designed to guide you into a restful state of learning. Think of this as a quiet conversation with history, a gentle unfolding of events and ideas that have shaped our understanding of courage, cunning, and the deep yearning for belonging. As we begin, imagine the ancient world, a vibrant mosaic of city-states, bustling harbors, and windswept islands scattered across the shimmering Aegean and Ionian seas. It is a world where gods and goddesses actively intervene in mortal affairs, where monsters lurk in the shadows of the unknown, and where the very fabric of society is bound by honor, hospitality, and divine decree. This is the backdrop against which the Odyssey unfolds, a world both distant and surprisingly familiar in its human concerns. We are not just recounting a story, we are immersing ourselves in the cultural bedrock of an era that gave birth to Western literature, philosophy, and political thought. The echoes of this ancient world still resonate in our language, our art, and our collective consciousness. The name Homer itself is shrouded in a mist of legend. Was he a single blind poet, wandering from city to city, reciting his epic verses to rapt audiences? Or was Homer a collective name, representing a tradition of oral poets who refined and passed down these grand narratives over generations? While historical certainty eludes us, what remains undeniable is the monumental impact of the works attributed to him. The Iliad, detailing the final days of the Trojan War, and the Odyssey, which chronicles the perilous 10-year journey home of Odysseus, the clever king of Ithaca. These poems were not just entertainment, they were educational tools, moral guides, and foundational texts that taught ancient Greeks about their heroes, their gods, and their own place in the cosmos. They were performed, recited, and revered, shaping the very identity of a burgeoning civilization. The Odyssey picks up where the Iliad leaves off, but its tone and themes are distinctly different. While the Iliad is a saga of war, rage, and heroic death, the Odyssey is a journey of homecoming, resilience, and the triumph of intellect over brute force. It is a story that explores the profound longing for home, for family, and for a return to one's rightful place in the world. Odysseus, the protagonist, is not merely a warrior. He is a man of many twists and turns, polytropos as the Greeks called him, a master of disguise, a clever strategist, and a survivor. His adventures take him to the farthest reaches of the known world and beyond, into realms of myth and wonder, confronting challenges that test his mind, his body, and his very soul. Consider the societal values embedded within the epic. Xenia, the concept of sacred hospitality, is a recurring theme, demonstrating the profound importance of treating strangers with kindness and respect. For one never knew if a god might be disguised among them. The consequences of violating Xenia, as seen in the suitor's behavior, are dire. Kleos, or immortal glory, is another driving force for heroes, but in the Odyssey, Odysseus often seeks Nostos, the return home above all else. This shift reflects a deepening understanding of what truly constitutes a fulfilling life beyond the battlefield. The power of storytelling, the role of fate, the complexities of divine intervention, and the human capacity for both good and evil are all explored with remarkable depth and nuance. As we gently drift into the narrative, picture the rugged beauty of the Greek islands, the shimmering olive groves, and the deep blue of the sea that both connects and separates these ancient communities. Imagine the hearth fires burning brightly in the halls of kings, the sound of lyres accompanying epic recitations, and the quiet rhythm of daily life unfolding beneath the watchful eyes of the gods. The Odyssey offers us a window into this world, allowing us to witness its customs, its beliefs, and its anxieties. It is a world where the boundaries between the real and the mythical are often blurred, where every landmark might hold a story of divine encounter or heroic deed. This deep dive into the Odyssey is more than a historical recount. It's an invitation to connect with the very essence of human experience. It's about enduring hardship, facing temptation, making difficult choices, and ultimately finding your way back to where you truly belong. It's a testament to the power of identity and the unbreakable bonds of family. As you listen, let your mind wander with Odysseus, feel the salt spray on your face, hear the siren song, and witness the unwavering loyalty of his wife Penelope back home in Ithaca. Allow the gentle rhythm of the narrative to carry you, to calm your thoughts, and to open your mind to the wisdom and beauty contained within this timeless masterpiece. We are about to embark on a journey that has captivated hearts and minds for millennia, a story that continues to resonate because it speaks to universal human truths. Let us begin our quiet conquest of the Odyssey. Our journey into the world of the Odyssey begins, fittingly, at its very genesis, the time and context of its creation. To truly appreciate the epic, we must first immerse ourselves in the Bronze Age Aegean, the period from which these stories are believed to have sprung, and then consider the ways in which they were shaped and transmitted through the centuries by oral poets. Imagine, if you will, the bustling harbor towns and fortified citadels that dotted the landscape of ancient Greece and Anatolia around the 12th century BCE, a period often referred to as the Late Bronze Age or the Mycenaean era. This was a time of powerful kingdoms, of intricate trade networks stretching across the Mediterranean, and of impressive architectural feats, evidenced by sites like Mycenae with its formidable Lion Gate, or Tiryns with its massive Cyclopean walls. These were societies ruled by warrior kings, protected by formidable armies, and deeply intertwined with a pantheon of gods and goddesses who held sway over every aspect of human life. This Bronze Age world, however, was not static. Around 1200 BCE, a series of catastrophic events, often referred to as the Bronze Age collapse, swept across the eastern Mediterranean. We're talking about widespread destruction, the disappearance of major civilizations, the disruption of trade routes, and a general decline in literacy and centralized power. The reasons are complex and debated, ranging from natural disasters like earthquakes and climate change to internal revolts and the movements of mysterious groups of people known as the Sea Peoples. It's a period of profound upheaval, a kind of historical dark age, and it's from the ashes of this collapse that the oral traditions that would eventually become Homer's epics began to solidify. The memories of grand cities like Troy, of heroic battles and epic journeys, would have been passed down through generations, transformed and embellished with each retelling, growing larger than life. Now, let's turn our attention to the oral tradition. This is crucial for understanding how the Odyssey came to be. For centuries before it was ever written down, the Odyssey, like the Iliad, existed as part of a vibrant oral tradition. Professional poets, known as auidoi or bards, would compose and perform these epic tales without the aid of writing. Think of them as living libraries, carrying vast repertoires of poetic formulas, stock phrases, and thematic patterns in their minds. When performing, they wouldn't simply recite from memory in a rigid way. Instead, they would recompose the poem anew with each performance, drawing upon a vast mental toolkit of epithets like swift-footed Achilles or rosy-fingered Dawn, typical scenes like arming sequences or sacrifices, and recurring narrative motifs. This flexible system allowed for improvisation and adaptation, keeping the stories fresh and engaging for their audiences, while still preserving the core narrative. The rhythm and meter, typically dactylic hexameter, also served as mnemonic devices, aiding both the poet in composition and the audience in recall. It's believed that these oral traditions eventually coalesced and were put into written form sometime around the 8th or 7th century BCE, during what is known as the Archaic period of Greece. This was a time when the Greek alphabet, adapted from the Phoenician script, was coming into widespread use. The act of writing down these vast oral poems was a monumental undertaking, preserving them for posterity and allowing for their wider dissemination and study. The figure of Homer, as we discussed, is associated with this crucial transition. Whether he was a single individual who painstakingly transcribed and shaped these narratives, or a name given to the culmination of a long tradition, his significance lies in the enduring legacy of these monumental works. The epics thus represent a bridge between a prehistoric, pre-literate age and the dawn of classical Greek civilization. As we consider the setting of the Odyssey, we are transported to a Mediterranean world that is both geographically real and mythologically charged. Odysseus's journey takes him far beyond the familiar shores of the Aegean Sea into realms where human and divine, real and fantastic, intricately intertwine. We encounter islands populated by monstrous beings, enchanted lands ruled by sorceresses, and the very entrance to the underworld. This geographical scope reflects the Greeks' growing knowledge of the wider Mediterranean world, but also their understanding of the boundaries of their known world and the terrifying unknown that lay beyond. The sea itself is a dominant character in the epic, a capricious, vast, and often deadly force that separates Odysseus from his cherished home and family. The role of the gods and goddesses is another foundational element. Unlike later monotheistic traditions, the Greek pantheon is a complex family of powerful, often capricious, and very human-like deities who constantly intervene in mortal affairs. Zeus, the king of the gods, presides over Olympus, but other deities like Athena, the goddess of wisdom and warfare, actively champion Odysseus, while Poseidon, the god of the sea, relentlessly persecutes him. Their motives are often personal: vengeance, favoritism, or even petty squabbles. This divine intervention isn't just window dressing. It's an integral part of the narrative, shaping events, delivering prophecies, and testing the resolve of mortals. It reflects the ancient Greek worldview, where the divine was not distant, but intimately involved in the daily lives and destinies of humankind. The gods embody natural forces, human emotions, and societal principles, reminding us of the cosmic scale upon which these ancient heroes operate. Finally, let us consider the audience and purpose of these epics. For the ancient Greeks, the Odyssey was far more than just a captivating story. It was a foundational text for education, morality, and cultural identity. Children would learn passages by heart, and poets would recite them at festivals and gatherings. The epic provided models of heroic behavior, ethical dilemmas, and the consequences of actions, both mortal and divine. It reinforced societal values like hospitality, loyalty, reverence for the gods, and the importance of justice. It also served as a source of historical memory, albeit one filtered through poetic imagination, connecting contemporary Greeks to a glorious, if mythologized, past. The detailed descriptions of feasting, rituals, seafaring, and warfare offered a vivid picture of what life might have been like in a heroic age. As we settle into the gentle current of this narrative, allow yourself to be transported back to this ancient world. A world where stories held immense power, shaping minds and molding civilizations. Now, as we gently drift from the origins of the Odyssey and the world that birthed it, we embark on the first perilous leg of Odysseus's monumental journey home. Imagine the great city of Troy, its walls finally breached, its defenders vanquished after a decade of relentless siege. The Achaeans, the Greeks, are victorious, yet their triumph is tinged with hubris and a disregard for the gods. It is this very disrespect that will set in motion the divine wrath and the long, arduous trials that await many of the returning heroes, none more so than Odysseus, the cunning king of Ithaca. His name is synonymous with cleverness, guile, and endurance, qualities he will need in abundance as he sets sail from the smoking ruins of Troy, eager to return to his beloved wife, Penelope, and his son Telemachus. The narrative of the Odyssey does not begin immediately with Odysseus's departure from Troy. Instead, it famously opens in medias res, a Latin term meaning in the middle of things. We are introduced to the dire situation back on Ithaca, a palace overrun by suitors, arrogant noblemen from Ithaca and neighboring islands who believe Odysseus is dead and are vying for Penelope's hand and, more importantly, for the throne of Ithaca. They are consuming Odysseus's wealth, abusing his hospitality, and plotting to kill Telemachus, who is now a young man struggling to assert himself in his father's prolonged absence. The goddess Athena, always Odysseus's champion, is deeply concerned by this injustice and appeals to her father Zeus to allow Odysseus to finally return home. This divine intervention sets the stage, demonstrating that even mortal heroes are subject to the will and sometimes the whims of the gods. Before we follow Odysseus on his direct path, let us briefly consider Telemachus's journey. Guided by Athena, who often appears in disguise, Telemachus embarks on his own quest to find news of his father. This journey, often called the Telemachy, is vital for his growth from an uncertain boy into a more confident young man. He visits Pylos, the kingdom of wise Nestor, one of the oldest and most respected Greek heroes, who fought alongside Odysseus at Troy. Nestor provides hospitality and recounts tales of the war and the difficult returns of other heroes. But he has no definitive news of Odysseus. From Pylos, Telemachus travels to Sparta, the realm of Menelaus and Helen, whose elopement sparked the Trojan War in the first place. Here, in the opulent halls of Sparta, they tell Telemachus of Odysseus's bravery and cunning at Troy. And Menelaus recounts his own arduous return, during which he learned from the sea god Proteus that Odysseus was alive but held captive on the island of Ogygia by the nymph Calypso. This news, though not immediate relief, provides hope and a renewed sense of purpose for Telemachus, strengthening his resolve to confront the suitors upon his return to Ithaca. Meanwhile, Odysseus himself has been held captive for 7 long years on Calypso's island, Ogygia. Imagine this idyllic yet isolated island, lush with trees, vibrant with flowers, and blessed with crystal-clear springs. Calypso, a beautiful nymph, is captivated by Odysseus and wishes to make him her immortal husband, offering him eternal life if he remains with her. Yet, despite the comforts and the promise of immortality, Odysseus yearns for his mortal life, for his wife, his son, and his home. He spends his days gazing out at the endless sea, weeping, his heart aching for Ithaca. This period highlights a crucial aspect of Odysseus's character, his profound nostos, his deep-seated desire for homecoming, which transcends even the allure of divine immortality. It is Hermes, the messenger god, sent by Zeus at Athena's urging, who finally commands Calypso to release Odysseus. Reluctantly, she obeys, providing him with tools and provisions to build a sturdy raft, setting him free to face the perils of the sea once more. His freedom, however, is short-lived. Poseidon, the god of the sea, harbors a deep grudge against Odysseus for blinding his son, the Cyclops Polyphemus. As Odysseus sails on his hastily constructed raft, Poseidon unleashes a furious storm, shattering the vessel and casting Odysseus into the raging waters. This is a moment of utter desperation, a test of pure survival against the overwhelming might of the sea god. Odysseus battles the tempest for 2 days and 2 nights, clinging to a piece of wreckage until he is finally washed ashore, utterly exhausted and naked, on the island of Scheria, the land of the Phaeacians. This dramatic shipwreck emphasizes the constant vulnerability of mortals to divine wrath and the sheer brutality of the natural world. The Phaeacians are a remarkable people, renowned for their hospitality, their shipbuilding prowess, and their peaceful existence, living apart from other mortals. It is on the shore of Scheria that Odysseus is discovered by Nausicaa, the kind and gentle princess, who, prompted by Athena in a dream, has come to wash clothes by the river. Her compassion and courage in approaching the bedraggled stranger are exemplary. She provides him with clothes, food, and guides him to the palace of her parents, King Alcinous and Queen Arete. This encounter marks a turning point in Odysseus's fortunes. He receives not only shelter and sustenance, but also the invaluable opportunity to tell his story, to recount the incredible hardships and adventures he has endured since leaving Troy. It is in the halls of Alcinous that Odysseus, preserving his anonymity at first, begins to weave the magnificent tapestry of his past, finally revealing his identity and the extraordinary Odyssey that has brought him to their shores. This part of the epic sets the stage for the famous flashback narrative, where Odysseus himself becomes the storyteller, captivating his Phaeacian hosts with tales of monsters, sorceresses, and the constant battle for survival against overwhelming odds, truly beginning his long account of his 10-year journey. Having been shipwrecked on the hospitable shores of Scheria, Odysseus, now seated among the Phaeacian nobles, begins to recount the astonishing and perilous tales of his 10-year journey. This section of the Odyssey forms the heart of the epic's narrative, a grand flashback where Odysseus himself becomes the eloquent narrator, captivating his audience with a series of incredible encounters that tested his cunning, his resilience, and the loyalty of his men. As we listen, imagine the awe in the eyes of Alcinous, Arete, and Nausicaa as they hear of the wonders and horrors their unexpected guest has faced. Odysseus's first stop after leaving Troy, a place he identifies only as Ismarus, the city of the Cicones, quickly turns disastrous. His men, emboldened by victory at Troy and eager for plunder, sack the city, but then linger too long, feasting and drinking, despite Odysseus's pleas to depart quickly. The Cicones, gathering reinforcements from inland, launch a fierce counterattack, forcing Odysseus and his men to flee with heavy losses. This early episode serves as a harsh lesson, highlighting the dangers of undisciplined greed and foreshadowing the many perils that await them due to their own human failings, or the wrath of the gods. It emphasizes the fragile line between triumph and tragedy in the ancient world. Driven by winds, they then reach the land of the Lotus Eaters. Here, some of Odysseus's men partake of the hypnotic lotus fruit, which causes them to forget their desire to return home, inducing a state of blissful apathy. Odysseus, ever vigilant, must forcibly drag his men back to the ships and bind them to the benches, demonstrating his strong leadership and his unwavering commitment to his ultimate goal, Nostos, the return home. This encounter is a psychological threat, a temptation to forget the hardships of their journey and the responsibilities of home, a subtle yet profound danger to their very identity. It speaks to the allure of escapism when faced with overwhelming challenges. Next, they arrive at the land of the Cyclops, a formidable race of one-eyed giants. This is arguably the most famous and pivotal episode in Odysseus's early wanderings, showcasing his legendary cunning. They stumble upon the cave of Polyphemus, a monstrous Cyclops who traps Odysseus and his men, devouring them 2 by 2. Rather than killing the Cyclops outright, which would leave them trapped by the massive boulder blocking the cave entrance, Odysseus devises a brilliant, albeit audacious plan. He offers Polyphemus undiluted wine, getting the giant drunk, and then, with the help of his remaining men, blinds the Cyclops with a heated, sharpened stake. When other Cyclopes hear Polyphemus's cries, he shouts that nobody is harming him, a clever trick played by Odysseus, who had introduced himself by that name. To escape, Odysseus and his men cling to the undersides of Polyphemus's sheep as they are let out to graze, passing undetected. However, in a moment of fatal hubris, Odysseus reveals his true name and lineage as they sail away, mocking the blinded giant. This act of hubris is what invokes the wrath of Poseidon, Polyphemus's father, setting in motion the sea god's relentless persecution of Odysseus throughout the rest of his journey. This episode serves as a powerful illustration of the consequences of excessive pride and the enduring power of divine retribution in the ancient Greek worldview. Their journey continues to the floating island of Aeolia, home of Aeolus, the keeper of the winds. Aeolus shows great hospitality to Odysseus, providing him with a bag containing all the unfavorable winds, tying it securely so that only the west wind, which would carry them home, is free. Odysseus sails within sight of Ithaca, the very air thick with the smell of home. But just as they are about to reach their destination, his curious and suspicious men, believing the bag contains gold that Odysseus is hoarding, open it while he sleeps. The unleashed winds unleash a violent tempest, blowing them all the way back to Aeolia. Aeolus, now realizing that Odysseus must be cursed by the gods, refuses to help them further, deeming him impious. This agonizing proximity to home, only to be cruelly denied, underscores the role of both fate and human error in their prolonged suffering. From Aeolia, they sail to the land of the Laestrygonians, a race of giant cannibalistic people. Odysseus's fleet sails into a seemingly safe harbor, but it is in fact a trap. The Laestrygonian king, Antiphates, and his queen attack Odysseus's scouts, and then the giants begin to hurl massive boulders down from the cliffs, smashing Odysseus's ships and spearing his men like fish. Only Odysseus's own ship, which he had wisely moored outside the main harbor, escapes this horrific massacre. This encounter represents another devastating loss of men, reducing his once sizable fleet to a single vessel and a mere handful of survivors. It emphasizes the sheer scale of the dangers lurking in the unknown corners of their world. Finally, they arrive at the island of Aea, the home of the sorceress Circe, daughter of the sun god. Circe, with her enchanting voice and powerful magic, lures some of Odysseus's men into her palace and transforms them into pigs. Odysseus, armed with an antidote given to him by the god Hermes, the magical herb moly, confronts Circe. He resists her enchantments, forcing her to restore his men to human form. He then remains on her island for an entire year, becoming her lover, feasting and enjoying her hospitality. During this time, Circe provides crucial advice for his journey, instructing him that before he can return home, he must journey to the underworld, the realm of the dead, to consult the prophet Tiresias. This period on Circe's island, though initially a pleasant respite, serves as a necessary interlude for prophecy and preparation, a time for Odysseus to gather vital knowledge for the perilous path ahead. It also demonstrates the temptation of ease and pleasure that can distract from one's ultimate goal. As Odysseus concludes his account of the year spent on Circe's island, the narrative shifts to what is perhaps the most profound and unsettling of his adventures: his descent into the underworld. This journey is not one of physical distance, but of spiritual and existential depth, a testament to the ancient Greek belief in a realm beyond mortal life where the shades of the dead reside. Circe, with her magical knowledge, provided Odysseus with precise instructions for this harrowing expedition. He sails to the furthest edge of the world, to the land of the Cimmerians, shrouded in perpetual mist and darkness, where the entrance to the realm of Hades and Persephone is found. To summon the dead, Odysseus must perform a solemn ritual, following Circe's directives to the letter. He digs a trench, pours libations of milk, honey, wine, and water, and sprinkles barley. Then, he sacrifices a ram and a black ewe, allowing their blood to fill the trench. The scent of the blood attracts the throngs of the dead, their spectral forms swirling around him, eager to drink and momentarily regain the power of speech. This scene is one of profound solemnity and a chilling evocation of the ancient world's understanding of death and the afterlife. Not a place of heavenly reward or infernal punishment, but a shadowy existence, a mere echo of life. The first shade to appear is that of Elpenor, one of Odysseus's own men, who had tragically died back on Circe's island, falling from a roof in a drunken stupor. Elpenor's plea for a proper burial upon Odysseus's return to Aeaea underscores the critical importance of funerary rites in ancient Greek society, ensuring that the deceased soul could find rest. This unexpected encounter reminds Odysseus of the human cost of his long journey and the responsibilities he bears as a leader. Then, the venerable figure of Tiresias, the blind prophet of Thebes, finally approaches and drinks from the blood. Tiresias is the central reason for Odysseus's journey to the underworld, as he possesses the crucial prophecies regarding Odysseus's future and his eventual return home. Tiresias foretells that Odysseus will indeed reach Ithaca, but only after facing further trials. He warns him sternly against harming the sacred cattle of the sun god Helios on the island of Thrinacia, predicting dire consequences if they do. He also speaks of the struggle awaiting Odysseus in his own palace, the need to defeat the suitors, and a final, mysterious journey he must undertake after his return to propitiate Poseidon. This prophecy is both a beacon of hope and a chilling premonition, laying out the precise challenges that still lie ahead. Following Tiresias, Odysseus encounters the shade of his own mother, Anticlea, whose death he was unaware of. Their emotional reunion is poignant, as she tells him of the sorrow and longing that have consumed his family back in Ithaca, confirming the dire situation with the suitors and the distress of Penelope and Telemachus. She paints a vivid picture of the suffering inflicted by his prolonged absence, deepening his resolve to return. Odysseus then speaks with a parade of famous heroes and heroines from Greek myth, providing a panoramic view of the ancient heroic age. He sees Agamemnon, the king who led the Greek forces at Troy, who recounts his tragic murder by his wife Clytemnestra and her lover Aegisthus upon his return home. Agamemnon warns Odysseus about the treachery of women, offering a bitter contrast to the steadfast loyalty of Penelope. He also encounters Achilles, the greatest of the Greek warriors, who famously declares that he would rather be a living serf than a king among the dead, lamenting the futility of heroic glory in the face of death. This conversation subtly underscores the Odyssey's emphasis on Nostos and a fulfilling life over the pursuit of Kleos in death, a contrast to the Iliad. Odysseus also sees Ajax, still resentful over the arms of Achilles, and other legendary figures suffering their eternal punishments, like Tantalus and Sisyphus, providing moral lessons within the narrative. After this profound encounter with the dead, Odysseus and his remaining crew return to Circe's island for a brief respite and to bury Elpenor properly, fulfilling his promise. Circe then provides more vital advice for the next legs of their journey, warning them specifically about the upcoming perils. The first peril is the Island of the Sirens, mythical creatures with enchanting voices whose irresistible songs lure sailors to their deaths on the rocky shores. Following Circe's advice, Odysseus plugs the ears of his men with beeswax, but driven by an insatiable curiosity and a desire to hear the famed song, he orders his men to tie him securely to the mast, forbidding them from releasing him no matter how much he begs. This demonstrates Odysseus's unique blend of caution, courage, and intellectual curiosity. He experiences the overwhelming power of the siren's song, but survives to tell the tale, emerging as the only mortal to ever hear their song and live. Immediately after escaping the sirens, they must navigate a narrow strait flanked by two terrifying monsters, Scylla and Charybdis. Scylla is a six-headed monster residing in a cave high on a cliff who snatches sailors from passing ships. Charybdis is a monstrous whirlpool that swallows ships whole, only to spit them out again. Circe had advised Odysseus to steer closer to Scylla, choosing the lesser of two evils, as losing 6 men is preferable to losing the entire ship to Charybdis. Odysseus, despite his heartbreak, follows this grim advice, sacrificing 6 of his men to Scylla's monstrous maw to save the rest of the crew and the ship. This agonizing choice highlights the impossible decisions a leader must make and the constant, overwhelming threat of the natural world and mythical beasts. Finally, they arrive at Thrinacia, the island of Helios, the sun god. Here, Circe's, and previously Tiresias's, warning about the sacred cattle of Helios becomes paramount. Odysseus, remembering the dire prophecy, tries to sail past the island, but his men, exhausted and starving after the ordeal with Scylla and Charybdis, mutiny, insisting on landing to rest and eat. Odysseus reluctantly agrees, making them swear an oath not to touch the cattle. However, a fierce storm strands them on the island for a month, their provisions dwindling. Driven by desperate hunger while Odysseus is asleep, his men succumb to temptation and slaughter some of Helios's sacred cattle. This act of sacrilege, a direct defiance of divine warning, seals their doom. Helios, enraged, appeals to Zeus, who promises retribution. When they finally set sail again, Zeus unleashes a devastating lightning bolt, shattering Odysseus's ship and drowning all his remaining men. Odysseus, clinging to a piece of wreckage, is once again the sole survivor, enduring another agonizing drift across the vast, unforgiving sea, eventually finding himself washed ashore on the remote island of Ogygia, where Calypso holds him captive for 7 more years. This brings us full circle, back to where the epic began its narrative, underscoring the relentless cycle of suffering and survival that defines Odysseus's journey. Odysseus's quiet infiltration of his own palace has now brought him to the precipice of justice. His identity still cloaked, he watches the daily desecration of his home by the suitors, young noblemen who carouse, feast, and compete for Penelope's hand in marriage. Their entitlement, arrogance, and growing suspicions create a volatile atmosphere, and the tension builds with every passing moment. Odysseus remains composed, gathering intelligence, testing loyalties, and awaiting the right moment to strike. Yet, Penelope is no passive queen. Her cunning rivals that of Odysseus himself. For years, she has resisted the suitors with cleverness and quiet strength, most famously through the ruse of the funeral shroud she weaves by day and unravels by night, claiming she cannot choose a new husband until she completes the burial cloth for Laertes, Odysseus's aging father. When this deception is finally exposed, Penelope is forced to act. She proposes a contest. Whoever can string Odysseus's great bow and shoot an arrow cleanly through 12 axe heads, a feat only Odysseus ever accomplished, shall win her hand. This contest of the bow is rich with symbolism. The bow, too powerful for any of the suitors to even string, becomes a test of both physical strength and rightful identity. When Odysseus, still in the guise of the beggar, asks to try, the suitors scoff. But Penelope, moved by a mysterious instinct, or perhaps divine guidance, allows it. As Odysseus takes the weapon into his hands, he examines it as a musician might tune a fine lyre. Then, with practiced ease, he strings it and sends an arrow cleanly through the axe heads, an impossible act unmistakable in its truth. At that moment, the beggar is no longer a stranger. He is Odysseus, king of Ithaca, and his return is no longer a secret. With Telemachus, Eumaeus, and Philoetius, the loyal cowherd, Odysseus launches into action. They bar the doors of the hall. The suitors, stunned and disarmed, face their reckoning. In a furious and methodical slaughter, Odysseus, now fully revealed, executes his vengeance. Arrows fly, blades flash, and pleas for mercy fall on deaf ears. This moment, brutal and bloody, is not simply about vengeance. It is about justice, restoration, and the reassertion of divine and moral order. These men have violated Xenia, abused power, and dishonored the sacred bonds of home and hospitality. Their punishment is absolute. Only two are spared, the bard Phemius and the herald Medon, both innocent of the suitors' crimes. Their lives are spared at Telemachus's urging, revealing that justice in Odysseus's hands is not blind vengeance, but discerning and, where appropriate, merciful. After the bloodshed, Odysseus commands the palace be purified, the halls cleansed with fire and sulfur, the smell of death and dishonor burned away. The final act remains, revealing himself to Penelope. This long-awaited reunion is marked not by a hasty embrace, but by quiet skepticism. Penelope, cautious and wise, is not swayed by appearances or declarations. She tests Odysseus one final time, ordering her maid to move their marriage bed. But Odysseus, knowing that the bed was crafted around a living olive tree and therefore immovable, reacts with indignation and passion. That intimate knowledge confirms what no disguise could conceal. Penelope now knows her husband has truly returned. Their reunion is tender, emotional, and cathartic, a celebration of faithfulness, endurance, and the unbreakable bonds of love. Yet even after reclaiming his palace, Odysseus's journey is not fully complete. He must still fulfill Tiresias's prophecy. He travels to visit his father Laertes, who lives in isolation, mourning both the loss of his son and the decay of his household. Odysseus, in another test of recognition, initially hides his identity, but ultimately reveals himself, and the two embrace in joy and tears. Together, they confront the final danger, the families of the slain suitors, who come seeking vengeance. But Athena, descending once more, intervenes to restore peace, reminding the people of Ithaca that war must now give way to unity. Zeus himself sanctions the truce. And so the Odyssey ends not in more bloodshed, but in reconciliation. Order is restored. The rightful king is home. The hearth burns again. The epic, which has taken us across storm-tossed seas and shadowed underworlds, now returns us to where it always aimed, the quiet, sacred space of home. Odysseus's journey, far more than a tale of adventure, is a meditation on identity, loyalty, suffering, and endurance. It asks, who are we when all that defines us is stripped away? How far will we go to return to who we are? And what, after all the battles are fought and lost, remains most essential? In the stillness of Ithaca, with peace settling like dust on sunlit stone, we find our answer. The Odyssey ends where it began, with home, with family, and with the enduring hope that, no matter how far we stray, we might one day find our way back. The stage is now impeccably set, the tension palpable, as we arrive at the climactic moments of the Odyssey, the reclaiming of the throne and the restoration of Odysseus's family and kingdom. After enduring years of exile and facing countless perils, Odysseus stands, still disguised as a beggar, on the precipice of achieving his long-sought Nostos, his homecoming. The palace, once a symbol of his power and prosperity, has become a den of insolent suitors, a symbol of the disorder and disrespect that has festered in his absence. The crucial moment arrives with Penelope's challenge of the bow. Driven by divine inspiration and her own cleverness, Penelope announces that she will marry the suitor who can string Odysseus's great bow and shoot an arrow cleanly through the holes of 12 axe heads lined up in a row, a feat only Odysseus himself was ever capable of. This challenge is her final, desperate attempt to delay the inevitable, to hope for a sign, or perhaps to simply buy more time. The suitors, despite their arrogance and strength, all fail miserably, unable even to string the massive bow. Their frustration and humiliation grow with each failed attempt, demonstrating their unworthiness and their fundamental lack of true heroic qualities. As the suitors despair, Odysseus, still in his beggar's disguise, quietly approaches Eumaeus, the loyal swineherd, and Philoetius, the loyal cowherd, both of whom have remained steadfast in their devotion. He tests their loyalty one last time, asking if they would stand by Odysseus if he were to return. Their heartfelt assurances of loyalty, even weeping at the thought of their master's return, confirm their steadfastness. At this poignant moment, Odysseus reveals his true identity to them, showing them his distinctive scar as proof. Their joy and relief are immense, and they immediately pledge their unwavering support, becoming crucial allies in the impending battle. With their help, Odysseus then requests a turn at the bow, amidst the jeers and ridicule of the suitors. Telemachus, also aware of the plan, asserts his authority and commands Penelope and her maidservants to retire to their chambers, a crucial step in isolating the suitors. The palace is locked down, sealed by the loyal herdsmen, trapping the unsuspecting suitors within. With a calm, practiced hand, Odysseus takes his legendary bow, inspects it, and effortlessly strings it, the sound resonating like a swallow's cry, a clear sign to Telemachus and his loyal few. He then, with terrifying precision, fires an arrow cleanly through all 12 axe heads, a perfect shot that signals the beginning of the end for the suitors. The atmosphere shifts instantaneously from mockery to terror. Odysseus, still standing at the threshold, suddenly casts off his beggar's rags, revealing his heroic, powerful form. With the help of Telemachus, Eumaeus, and Philoetius, the slaughter of the suitors begins. This is not a battle. It is a brutal, relentless execution of those who have defiled his home and plotted against his family. The first to fall is Antinous, the most arrogant and abusive of the suitors, struck through the throat by an arrow from Odysseus's bow. Chaos erupts. The ensuing battle is fierce, but one-sided. The suitors, armed poorly and disoriented, are trapped, their numbers dwindling under the relentless assault of Odysseus, his son, and the two loyal herdsmen. Athena, though initially holding back to test Odysseus's resolve, eventually joins the fray, her aegis appearing in the hall, striking terror into the hearts of the remaining suitors and confirming divine favor on Odysseus's side. The hall is filled with blood, the groans of the dying, and the grim satisfaction of justice being served. After the brutal slaughter, Odysseus then oversees the grim task of cleansing his house. He forces the disloyal maidservants, who had consorted with the suitors and betrayed his household, to remove the bodies and clean the blood-soaked hall. Once their gruesome task is complete, Telemachus, at Odysseus's instruction, hangs them, a stark and brutal act that reflects the severe justice of the ancient world. The entire palace is then thoroughly purified with sulfur and fire, symbolically purging the defilement that had consumed it. The final, most tender, and perhaps most difficult reunion is with Penelope. She has been told by Euryclea that Odysseus has returned and slaughtered the suitors, but after 20 years of separation and countless false reports of his return, she remains cautious, guarded, and deeply skeptical. She descends to the Great Hall, remaining aloof, testing her husband one last time. Odysseus, in turn, also maintains a degree of distance, allowing her to come to her own conclusions. Penelope's ultimate test of Odysseus's identity revolves around their marriage bed, a secret known only to them. She orders Euryclea to move the marriage bed, knowing that it is impossible, for Odysseus had built their bed from the trunk of an ancient olive tree, still rooted to the ground within their chamber. When Odysseus, exasperated by her seeming indifference, passionately describes how their bed is immovable and how he built it, Penelope's doubts finally shatter. This intimate knowledge, this shared secret, confirms his identity beyond any doubt. Their emotional reunion is one of the most powerful and moving scenes in literature. Tears, embraces, and a flood of shared memories. With his family finally reunited, Odysseus also reunites with his aged father, Laertes, who has been living in sorrow and neglect since Odysseus's departure. This touching reunion further heals the wounds of absence and brings another layer of reconciliation and restoration to his household. The epic concludes not with unmitigated triumph, but with a final, necessary peace. The families of the slain suitors, enraged by their losses, gather an army to seek vengeance against Odysseus. A final battle looms on the horizon. However, Athena, under the guidance of Zeus, intervenes one last time. She descends to Ithaca, appearing to both sides and commanding them to cease hostilities. Through her divine intervention, a covenant of peace is established between Odysseus and the grieving families, restoring order and stability to Ithaca. This final act of divine arbitration ensures that Odysseus's reign will begin not with endless vendetta, but with a fragile yet vital peace. Odysseus has reclaimed his identity, his home, his family, and his rightful place as king. His incredible journey, filled with trials, triumphs, and profound suffering, has finally come to an end, culminating in the restoration of taxis, order to his world.